Stop pretending. Happiness is an inside job. Let go of that pattern of pretending. There will never be enough external validation. You're going to be under stress because you're constantly trying to meet the expectations of everyone around you. When you learn something, you get it intellectually, then you get it emotionally. But when you really understand it, you get it in your body. Trust that every emotion you experience is valid. It's real. It's about just really giving yourself the gift of trusting your emotion, appreciating the breath of life.
Self-doubt can be paralyzing, but what if there's a way to dissolve it? Not in years, but in moments. I'm Jill Collins, and we're joined today by my very special guest, Deb Battersby, a pioneer in the realm of energy work, whose work has not only transformed lives, but it's also backed by compelling evidence that this isn't just another wellness trend. It's a scientifically supported method to reclaim your power. Deb will guide us through the exact steps of using energy work to dissolve self-doubt, laying out a blueprint that anyone can follow, even from the comfort of their own home. So let's dive in. We're back once again at Jill Collins Connections. I'm so excited to share with you my guest today, Deb Battersby. Deb is not only an acclaimed coach, trainer, and passionate explorer in the field of success psychology and personal development, but she's also a dear friend. I'm so excited to have her today. She has more than 20 years experience working with individuals and helping them transform their lives through energy work and many other things. And she has an incredible cutting edge program and technology that she uses called the Freedom Point Method. So we're going to talk about that today. We're also going to talk about how to break your patterns of limiting beliefs and things that are holding you back. Because really what we want to do today is we want to help you access more of your own potential. And really, it's working with the genius of the subconscious, she says. So let's dive right in. Deb, I'm so glad to have you here today. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Jill. I'm excited to be here with you.
Thank you. Well, I just dive right in. You know, for those unfamiliar with energy work, can you explain what it is and the impact it has on different areas of our lives?
Well, I'm a pragmatist, in general. I like facts and logical insights behind everything that I finally, draw a conclusion around. And so I kind of figured out a long time ago in studying all different avenues of personal development that we understand a lot of our challenges on an intellectual level. And that, when we're mastering something, if you take the principles of martial arts, that to master anything, first of all, you kind of have to get at the concept on an intellectual basis, but you also then have to get it in your body so that whatever it is you're trying to create or perfect, that there's a muscle memory, there's an intelligence of the body that helps you keep making progress. And all of this is about energy. And in the personal development arena, one of my mentors and yours as well, Tony Robbins, Tony says that, when you learn something, you get it intellectually, then you get it emotionally. But when you really understand it, you get it in your body. And what that triggered for me some 20 years ago was that almost everything we do in personal development is based on the intellectual and the emotional side of things, and that we rarely address the physical component of what is it doing in the body. And so I started to look at, if we want to release patterns or transform patterns, then we have to use the same three-pronged approach, where we're looking at the intellectual insights, awareness, understanding. We're also looking at the emotional construct that goes with that pattern of belief or behavior. And then finally, how does it physically manifest in the body? And so, in asking those questions, I was also, not too long after asking that question, I was watching a documentary on quantum theory. And, it really hit me that no matter how you break it down, everything that exists, including you and me and everything around us, is energy. Everything is energy. And everything that exists vibrates at a different frequency. If it has a different structure, it has a different frequency. So kind of putting two and two together, I thought, well, that must be true for our emotional patterns as well. Their energy and the frequency at which they manifest determines the information they deliver. So it was kind of an interesting way of dissecting the puzzle and going, okay, let me simplify this. If we look at everything as these, patterns of behavior or these personality attributes and things, what does it really boil down to? It's energy and information. And if it's perpetual, that information is programmed into the nervous system in some way. And if that is true, then it actually has a residency in the body. And so I thought, okay, if all of that is true and it makes sense, how can I connect with that information? And that was the beginning of the exploration of the Freedom Point work. And so I wanted to first, understand that everything, and when we talk about these frequencies and these energies, they're simply patterns of information. And so the first thing we're looking for, it's what's the pattern? What is the pattern of language? What is it that you say to yourself on a regular basis? What is the pattern of emotion? What are the things that you feel consistently when certain things in your life happen? What are the emotional responses to that? These are the patterns. So we're looking at patterns of thought, patterns of belief, patterns of emotion, patterns of behavior. So again, and then we're kind of stripping it down to the fundamentals. What's the pattern? What's the energy and the emotion attached to the pattern? What information does it have? And what do we do with that information? And this is where I got curious. And I have to tell you, because I'm such a practical, logical person to begin with, I figured that every human being on the planet experiences emotions. And even if they're numb and detached, it's an emotional response. Its numbness is an emotional response, even if it is designed to make sure you feel as little as possible. So I figured if we all experience emotions, that this is a human condition. And there must be a system within the body that actually allows us to experience emotions. And I thought, okay, if that's true, and there actually is an emotional system, then why would the emotional system be any less perfect than any other system in the body? The respiratory system, the digestive system, the endocrine system, the immune system, the skeletal system. If those systems are so perfect and so well designed and evolved, then there has to be an amazing intelligence behind the emotional system as well. And so I figured, well, if every system in the body is designed to actually support human being, to support our existence, to support the fact that we survive, to help us thrive, then you know what? The emotional system has to do the same thing. So I started looking at this system as perfect and flawless. And so if that's true, then what is it designed to do? And so taking a lot of different abstract, well, not abstract, but real scientific principles and putting them together in a new way, came up with this whole Freedom Point method to connect with these energetics in the body, these frequencies, these patterns, and to discover what are they here to do? Because again, if every system that we have is designed for our survival and our perpetuation of the species, then none of it's designed to be self-destructive. And we often think of our emotional patterns as self-destructive. And so I just started to challenge that whole perception that nothing that we feel is designed to be self-destructive.
Wow. Because I know we've talked about that when I've coached with you in the past and ongoing. And it's so interesting because when I say something, oh, I'm sabotaging myself here. And you really taught me that like, that is not what this is. This is actually something that's divine and perfect. And
Mhm.
there's reason for whatever this is, the behavior, the emotion I'm feeling, the pattern I'm running, and where it's
I'm
coming
so
from.
I'm so glad you brought that up because I don't believe in self-sabotage. I don't believe in it at all. I think we label it as that because we don't understand what's going on. The reality is what we have is extreme methods of self-protection. It
Mm.
is self-sabotage. It's an intense desire to protect the self.
An intense desire to protect the self. Okay. So if that's the case, and then we're sitting here going like, well, I keep having these same patterns, I keep doing these same things, and I can't seem to break through or break free of this. Like I continue to procrastinate. I've been meaning to do this thing, or I've been meaning to, and I'm using procrastination as an example. And
Sure.
myself, what someone would call self-sabotage. How do we break that down specifically if we use
Well, we have to
procrastination?
realize that the pattern is usually a protection pattern is always based in fear, you
Mm,
know? And so, that's the primal instinct. We are, I think every living organism is designed to avoid pain. And because pain oftentimes will result in death. And so the animal instinct is to protect, to avoid pain. And so every protection pattern we run is designed to avoid our perception of a greater pain. Like we procrastinate sometimes because the fear might be fear of failure. The fear might be that, we talk about imposter syndrome, maybe the fear that I'm a fraud, the fear that I'm not enough, the fear that somebody will find out that I don't know everything, the fear that I might fail. Sometimes the fear is I might succeed. I might succeed and then alienate people that I love or leave behind people that I care about. There's always a fear based in a protection pattern, and it is designed to avoid pain, but it's our perception of pain. It's been a long time since most of us have been exposed to real life-threatening situations, but our natural instinct is still protection. And so we're more inclined to focus on emotional protection because physical threat is not relevant for most of us. And so emotional threat is the most intense thing we're going to experience. And so we begin to protect ourselves from hurt of any kind, pain of any kind, embarrassment, humiliation, rejection, judgment, you name it. We can create a fear around it.
Okay. Okay. And that makes sense because that's really what the basis is, right? We're designed to protect ourselves. That's what our ego, our bodies, we've done
Mhm.
primarily designed to do that. So diving in a little bit more specifically is how can I assume it can energy work? I know personally it can improve our relationships, whether it be romantic, familial or professional, like love relationships. How sometimes we have these things where we keep having the same patterns and people say,
Yeah.
okay, well, you need to work on yourself. You need to read this book. You need to, these little strategies, 8 ways to date or whatever it is. And it's not that, is it? It's more, there's something deeper.
It's more than that. It's a fascinating thing because we have been trained and kind of socialized to look for acceptance and approval externally. And that we have to behave in a certain way to fit into a certain group or to be accepted in our family or to excel in a particular arena. So we have been trained and socialized to really look for our own validation externally. And the challenge with that is that because we have this need to be connected and this need to be important, that there will never be enough external validation. There will
Mm.
never be enough because it's temporary. The moment you get it, a few seconds later, maybe a few minutes later, maybe a few hours later, maybe even a couple of days later, you might need more validation, or something happens that makes you question that validation you just got. And so now, as long as you're looking externally, you're going to get hurt. You're going to be disappointed. You're going to be under stress because you're constantly trying to meet the expectations of everyone around you to get the love, the attention, the approval, the acknowledgement, the acceptance, the adoration that you really crave. And so, one of my clients, and, of course, this is not unique to her, she says, success is an inside job. The reality is that everything is an inside job.
Mhm.
Everything. Happiness is an inside job. Success, just being at ease, being grounded, being centered, all of that is an inside job. And because we have spent so much of our existence looking externally for everything, that we haven't cultivated that awareness or that validation and that worthiness within ourselves. And the beautiful thing about the kind of work that we're talking about is that the frequency of self-love, the frequency of self-worth, self-respect, self-reliance, self-acceptance, self-approval, self-celebration, anything, self-esteem, self-image, all of those things are grounded in the self. They cannot be given to you externally. And yet we look for them externally in expectation that that's going to prove to the self, that ego part of us, that, yep, we are enough. And so, in essence, the beautiful thing about this work is that we can discover these resources within ourselves, that we can activate these energies and emotional experiences within ourselves. And this is why I refer to this as the emotional system, because this system is highly sophisticated. It can create any frequency at all. And I attribute that power to the subconscious. I am not a scientist or a neurologist, so I could be wrong. Maybe it's not the subconscious. Maybe it's a higher consciousness. Maybe it's something else, but it is there. And I just refer to it as the subconscious, because in this type of work, we really go into a different brainwave frequency to access the wisdom of the subconscious and the information that is stored in the body. And I'm assuming, many of your listeners are familiar with Michael Singer's work. And, just recently revisited The Untethered Soul. And he talks so much about the energy patterns, and that what gets blocked in the body are the little tiny traumas and the big traumas that we close to, that we close the heart to. And that, the major function of all these protection patterns is to protect the heart from the pain of loss, or the pain of not enough, or the pain of not feeling like you belong. And so if you subscribe to those, those beliefs and theories, then you recognize that any energy pattern can be shifted, because I think I learned this back in 6th grade science, that energy cannot be destroyed, but it can be transformed. And so if that's true, and the subconscious has the access to all these emotional frequencies, then the subconscious can transform any energy pattern with the right motivation.
Okay, I love that. And so I'm hearing a lot of the kind of the science, the technical side of it, which is really great. And I'm thinking of listeners, women who might be in midlife listening to this and going like, Okay, this is really deep stuff. So like, give me specific applications. Like, what is it that people are going through? Like, perhaps it's, like different self-doubt or common issues that you can work
Well,
on.
one of the things
What are some ways things we can solve with this work?
Well, one of the things that you and I've talked about before is that, because we work, with a lot of women and, successful women who, are in their 50s or moving into their 60s, and they have, concerns that, it's kind of like, where do I fit in? What's my role in the world today? And is it too late for me to accomplish anything greater than what I've already done? And so here's what I'm going to suggest. Whatever thought you have, if you think it's too late, that creates stress in the body. That's like, and it probably could create some sadness. And the first thing that I would invite any of our listeners to do is accept the feeling, whatever it is. If the thought is it's too late, sit with that thought for a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, I don't care, sit with it and notice how you feel. And the feeling is where the answers lie, because every emotional feeling has a job to do. And so when I say, that every emotion comes to serve you in some way, every emotion has a job to do. And if sadness comes or feeling left out comes, sit with it. Just sit with it and let yourself experience it. And then I ask the question, and I ask it of myself all the time, why are you here? Okay, if sadness, you're here, why are you here? Why are you here? If you're really here for my benefit, if you're here to serve me, why are you here? What did you come to do for me? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What did you come to do for me, and why are you here? Because it's sometimes we think that the feelings are something that just happen to us, and we can't do anything about it. We actually can look at it and step outside of ourselves and observe our feelings, because we're not our body. Essentially, we're not our emotions. We're not our thoughts even. And so when we can see that and understand that aspect of ourselves, that we're just, who am I? I'm the observer of the thoughts. I'm the feeler of the feelings. I'm the mover of the body. And then step back and look at it as a movie and say, wow, look, this feeling just came by here. I love what Michael Singer says, though. He's like, you just, when you have a wave, you just look at it and you go, wow, look at that. And you just lean back and let it kind of wash by, and that really makes a big difference. And so having that, feeling of, why are you here is looking at it that way. That's really awesome.
I want to give you a really interesting example of this. This happened to me a couple of years ago, and I was on a long drive, and this thought kept going through my head. I'm so tired. I'm so tired. I'm so tired. I had been, working on some major projects. I was really busy. I'd been really working long days, consistently. And I kept saying, I'm so tired. I'm so tired. And this is the repetition going on in my head. And all of a sudden, this voice from inside, and this happens periodically, and you might have similar experiences, or our listeners might. And this voice said, what are you tired of? And I what? And I was kind of in shock, like, what am I tired of? And the answer came, I'm tired of pretending. And
Wow.
then the question kind of evolved, because sometimes when you're on a long drive, you don't realize it, but you drop into a trance. And we do this, how like you can drive long distances and you can get to your destination and not even remember how the heck you got there. Well, so when you're driving, it surprised the heck out of me. But so this conversation begins, and the conversation is, okay, so I'm tired of pretending. And then the question was, what are you pretending? And the answer was, I'm tired of pretending that everything is okay when it isn't.
You
And
see that, and this is so beautiful to hear you say that. I mean, this is the kind of work Deb does, is like just to really take a moment to observe and to go into inquiry and question our
mhm,
feelings, what's going on. And we get so busy in our lives doing all these things, and we're just checking off the boxes and doing the errands and getting the tasks done. And by the end of the day, we're exhausted and we just missed everything. And it's this just taking these moments to figure out why we're off and what is it, and questioning is beautiful. Keep going. I just wanted to throw that in.
and the thing that was so funny, then the question came, like I'm not even sure how this dialogue is taking place, but it's happening. So I'm just following my own method as I'm having this dialogue with this information. And it said, what are you going to do about it? And the answer came, stop pretending. And I'll tell you, this is something that occurred several years ago. And Jill, I don't pretend. I let go of that pattern of pretending that very day in that conversation. And so if you ask me how I feel, I am not going to give you a clipped, fine, great, good, not bad, whatever. I'm not, because I'm not pretending anything. If you ask me how I'm doing, that's a crazy question, because I have to go inward to examine how am I really doing so I can tell you the truth. And sometimes I'm going, Deb, why are you doing this? But I'm going, oh, well, because you don't pretend. I go, okay. So, uh, and I share this with you because these are my own personal experiences, but I have done thousands of these guided sessions, thousands in the last 24 years. And the brilliance and the wisdom and the insights that come from a dialogue with these emotional patterns and the wisdom of the subconscious continues to blow my mind, absolutely blow my mind. And I can give you another personal experience, and this will maybe help you understand and maybe help our listeners understand. This also happened a few years ago, and I was supporting an event, working really long hours. And it's probably 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'm crawling into bed, and I'm feeling all this pain in my lower back. And I figured, okay, well, I believe that this is energy and information. So as I'm drifting off to sleep, I'm exploring this energy. And I just ask, okay, so I ask myself, okay, why are you here? What are you? Because I didn't know what it was, because the pain, sometimes we think it's just pain. So I asked, what are you? And, again, I do recommend these conversations happen when you're in a trance-like state. This happens when you're drifting off to sleep. It also happens when you're first waking up, because you're still in that lower brain frequency. You're in alpha or theta. So you access different information. And so as I'm drifting into sleep and I'm going, okay, what are you? And one answer came, and I thought, oh, that doesn't make sense. And another answer. And then the third answer said, I am the, I am the, I am the pain of being unsupported. And and what happened in that moment, tears started to roll down my cheeks. That's how I knew that it was authentic, that it was real information, because I had an emotional response to it. And so, and when I asked then, why are you here? And it's kind of comical, because the answer was, I came to give you backbone.
Mm.
I came to give you the strength to stand up for yourself. I came to give you the strength to stand up for those who cannot stand up for themselves.
Wow. Wow. It's moving.
Uh, and 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 then I asked the question, is there anything else you need to do for me? And the answer was no. And so my thought was, then is your mission complete? And the answer was yes. And so because of how I facilitate this work, then the next question is, are you free to go? And the answer was yes. And so I just, because I facilitate the release through the breath, I just go, okay, take a deep breath and let it go. And I will tell you that although I do periodically have pain in my back, it's not in the same location. And it's not that. So that feeling of being unsupported, even though it made no logical sense to me, when it revealed itself, I thought, that's insane. I have all kinds of support around me. And then I thought to myself, okay, if you really trust the system, shut up and listen. So I did. I said, okay, so why are you here? What's your job? And when it shared, when the insight came as to why it was there, I thought, what an amazing gift. What an amazing gift. And this is what most people will discover with their limiting patterns, the things they judge as destructive, unhealthy, unacceptable, unwanted, that oftentimes those patterns are the source of your greatest strengths. And the only thing that we don't know, because so much of this happens automatically, intuitively, but what I've discovered is the system doesn't really know when the job is done. So sometimes these patterns stay much longer than they're needed. And
Okay.
so
That's the question I want to ask you is like why do they hang around if they're no longer needed? Do we have to actually, do they need to be acknowledged and observed? They need to be seen and you go, okay, hey, I see you. Okay.
Well,
And
yeah, that's
recognize.
part of it. It's the awareness, it's the acknowledgement. But also in the acknowledgement, we're looking for what are the gifts that this pattern has given. And, when this pattern says, hey, I came to give you backbone, I thought, whoa, there was a time in my life when I was this very shy, insecure little girl that could not speak to someone in authority without crying. And I can remember many incidents as a child where that occurred. And so I thought, oh, but if you ask me to address or confront anyone in any position at any level for any reason, I have no hesitation.
I know that about you. You're just so, you walk in such like divine queen, just being the space of this person, this woman who is just so divine and you know yourself. You're not arrogant or offensive. It's just this knowing. It's this beautiful presence that you have. And I've seen this work. I have to say, when you've done this with me, what you're talking about is when you release these patterns and you say, are you willing to, are you free to go? And you say, yes, I'm not joking, everyone. This actually goes away. It really does. It's not just like we're doing the, incantations, affirmations are great. But to me, sometimes they just sort of, this is just my personal opinion, they sort of mask what's happening under the hood. And so we're going like, okay, I'm awesome. I'm awesome, whatever. And then there's always this like, the inner voice goes, that's bullshit. You're not. And so it's like, you have to compete with that and you're sort of like fighting it. So when you finally see the pattern, it's like, oh, okay. Now I know you gave me a couple when we worked on some of my work I came up with that I had to try, and I can't remember the third one, but I wrote it down to try to remember, is beautiful mind and divine wisdom. In my wisdom and my beautiful mind, there was one other. And it carried me to the state of being where I was unsure of myself and I doubted myself. And then I came into this like, okay, I have, even though I'm older, is it too late? No, I have a beautiful mind and I have divine wisdom from all my years of experience. And so it's this knowing, it's this presence of just relaxed certainty and self-assurance. That's self inside, not outside. Right. And so that's
exactly. It's so beautiful. And, I think the first thing, the first real step in getting access to this new way of seeing things is to really trust that every emotion you experience is valid. that there's nothing wrong with it. It's real. If other people say you shouldn't feel that way, that's total bullshit. If you feel that way, you feel that way. And there's a reason you feel that way. And to acknowledge that and to just go, okay, I know that somehow you are here to serve me in some way. And that is where you begin that connection to this wisdom. It is emotional wisdom. There's certainly a lot of beautiful work out there around emotional intelligence, but I kind of like to take it one step further. It's not that we have emotional intelligence, and we do have it, and we can develop it. But the reality is, if you look at it from the perspective that all emotion is intelligent, that's different than emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is something we think we get. The reality is all emotion is a form of higher intelligence, and it is here to serve you in some way. And if you can embrace that and stop judging all the things you feel as being wrong, stupid, crazy, unfounded, ridiculous, whatever you're doing, we just say, oh, that's wrong, that's stupid, that's inappropriate. I'm much stronger than that to feel that way. Well, if you feel jealous, you feel jealous. If you feel hurt, you feel hurt. If you feel sad, you feel sad. But if
it doesn't identify, you don't, that's not your identity. It's not who you are. That's the thing, is that we make all these things. Sometimes we beat ourselves up for the fact that we have these feelings or these thoughts, and we go, oh my gosh, that's terrible. How could I think that? How could I feel that?
Exactly. I shouldn't do that. That's crazy. People like me don't think like that. Well, the reality is, I figure like the emotional system is calibrating all of the input that we're experiencing in any given moment. And the energy field around you is busy all the time. And there are certain and so the subconscious, that wisdom that's way beyond what we can fathom, is assessing all of the energy input 24/7. And so if you respond to something emotionally, it's because the energy has triggered something, a fear, a hurt, a wound, a sadness, a disappointment, and all of that is there. And if it's triggered, it's because it hasn't been processed yet. It hasn't been completed. So it has a residence in the body, and something just kind of activated it.
I want to touch on that, because that's something about pain and manifest in our bodies. And this is something that I see, and I've intuitively known this, family members, people in my life that have had chronic pain or different things going on. And so it's, what happens if we just say, you know what, Deb, this is a great video. Really appreciated the interview. This was really interesting information. I'm good. What could happen? I mean, is it physical body, like you said, back pain? What's the implications? I mean, I don't want to be negative, but I want to also see, like, we see the benefits of like how we can be set free. And so what happens if we just leave it like it is?
Well, the interesting thing is that the things that we don't want to feel, we are expert at repressing or suppressing or denying as best we can. And they will manifest in stress, tension, anxiety. They can, if you, I think it was maybe Deepak Chopra as well as Wayne Dyer that talk about disease as dis-ease in the body. It's just an uneasiness in the body. And as that uneasiness compounds, the physical manifestations, accelerate. And so it's about just really giving yourself the gift of trusting your emotions. Doesn't mean you have to act out on your emotions. If you're angry, it doesn't mean you have to go grab somebody and smack them. Or you break a window or throw a dish across the room, although sometimes that might help. The reality is that anger is there for a reason. And usually when we're angry with someone else, it's because we're angry with ourselves. We're angry that we didn't set the boundaries. We're angry that we didn't speak up for ourselves. We're angry that we didn't make it clear what we wanted. We're angry that we accepted less than we really wanted. We're angry that we tolerated, bad behavior. That we're angry that we let people get away with walking all over us. We're angry with ourselves. And so we might manifest that anger externally, but it doesn't resolve the issue internally. It just is a temporary venting and releasing of that energy. But
And
the
then we feel guilt and resent, and we feel guilt and bitterness, and we feel bad after we do things like that too. So then it just stacks.
Oh, yeah.
Are there things that are there have you had examples? I know you said, I mean, I know you're not a doctor, but have you had examples where you worked with people other than your back situation where people who have physical ailments have actually been healed or had situations really recovered from this work?
Yeah.
Can you give us an example or two?
I worked with a woman in Australia. Oh my gosh, I can give you a couple of examples. I worked with a woman in Australia who had an operation where a third of one of her lungs had been removed. And she had constant respiratory issues, shortness of breath and all kinds of where she couldn't really take a full breath. So it impacted her energy and movement and everything else. And the interesting thing was that, like I said, if everything is energy and information, I wanted to talk with the discomfort in the lungs. And it said something about, it was about appreciating the breath of life, that, you've been holding your breath too long, waiting for something to change. And so as we, I'd have to go back to my notes to get all the details from it. But after our session, and we asked this, and it was, and this energy in the lungs was called, it was a darkness. It had manifested, it had described itself as a thick, viscous darkness. And that, and so when you're in doing trance work, fascinating things come up. And so after our session, about an hour later, she had gone to the toilet in the venue where we were at, and she said she was coughing up this black stuff from her lungs. And when I talk about it, I kind of get chills. And what happened was, and her breathing, her vocal tone, her energy level just shifted so much after that. And I think she reached out to me. It was about 2 to 3 weeks later. She had gone to the doctors, because she has to go in for checkups with this condition, and that before, she was told that she would never have more than a 40% lung capacity in that lung. And even though she was missing a third of her lung, that the new information indicated that she had 90% lung capacity in that damaged lung. And so, have I seen crazy things happen? Oh my God, that's one of the most unusual. I had a situation very recently where a woman had a condition called, I think it's called, oh gosh, I don't want to call it the wrong thing now, but it's I'll have to think of the technical label for it, but it's a constant ringing in the ears, but it's a ringing so loud. I think there's something like xenophonia, something like that, but I could be screwing that up royally. But it's so loud, and she's had it since she's 5 years old, and she is 53 or 54, something like that. And so this loud ringing in the ears had been plaguing her for so long. It was a very big challenge for her in school. She had to work in quiet, isolated spaces. any distraction, any movement, like the clicking of a pen or the rustling of a paper, or heightened awareness of, and it wasn't just it ringing in the ears, it was just a heightened awareness of every external sound. And she'd been to see every kind of doctor you can think of, because she's had this since 5 years old. She was involved in a big study at Duke University trying to find the physiological origin of this condition. And, she was in several group studies, and no one could find a solution to this. And it occurred to me that something about this, because everything is a pattern, heightened awareness of external sounds. I thought, this is a protection pattern. That was my first thought. And it also made me think that there's a trauma related to it. And so we're doing the work and discovering a few things, and how she kind of controls the volume of this external sound. And then I asked, where in the body is the information called trauma? And she had this immediate flashback. And this doesn't always happen, because it's not like you have to remember the situation where it occurred. But the flashback was that she was 5 years old, and her godmother, and it was either her godmother's boyfriend or husband, were coming to pick her up for the day. And as soon as she heard his voice, she ran upstairs into a closet, pulled all the clothes down to cover herself so no one would find her. And so she had activated this heightened awareness of sound as a protection mechanism. She doesn't know what happened with this man, only that the incident where this heightened awareness occurred. Like, she couldn't even eat at the dinner table with the family, because the sound of someone's fork on their plate or the sound of someone's chewing would drive her up the wall. And so what happened was, you ask, okay, this pattern, this heightened sensitivity to external sounds, why are you here? I'm here to protect her. Protect her from what? Danger. And so she began to understand a lot of her issues around men, a lot of her issues, about, and it also acknowledged that put her in fight or flight mode 24/7, that she is poised to fight or run, and that she had spent her whole life under this kind of stress. And what I realized, in the fight or flight pattern, there was no place for rest. You're either fighting or you're running. And so what we created in that pattern was a place to rest, that the fight only occurs when it's necessary, that the running only occurs when it's necessary, and everything in between is rest. And so we were able to modify this pattern on the subconscious level to create that. But we also released the trauma. And the need for protecting a 5-year-old was very different than the need for protecting a 55-year-old, sophisticated, accomplished woman. And so that pattern was released. And by the way, that condition went away in that moment. And so this is real world experience. And like I said, I'm not a medical professional, but I do understand there is a genius system that is designed to protect us. And if you can embrace that system and really learn to trust it, and use some of the techniques that I recommend to connect with it and communicate with it, you're going to be so far ahead of the game, because most human beings have no idea how powerful and how genius this system is.
Oh my gosh, I love this so much. Every time I talk to you, Deb, I just get so excited, because it's like it sets you free. I think we just break free from these, for those of us who tried so many things, when you just read books, or you go to different things, you join things, you pay for events or pet programs, and it's just, I remember the first time I worked with you, I just went, okay, I get it. Like how in the world, how did I not know you? How did I not know you sooner? And so I'm so grateful for you. I want to mention that you have an empowerment session coming up that you're offering April 2nd, and we'll drop the link on how to get that free session for those of you that are subscribing here. So subscribe so you get more access to things that we're doing. We have the community coming up. The Jill Collins, the Midlife Mastery community is launching. So Deb's has offered to also be a part of that and jump in and answer questions at some point for our members. So super excited about that. And so Deb, tell us anything else, any last minute thoughts before we wrap up? I just love this work so much. I'm grateful to you for being here.
I am so fascinated by this work, and I tell you, it's because I'm an explorer. I've just been exploring the power of the subconscious for 30 years. And I just, the more I explore it, the more in awe I become. And I understand that, every human being has this genius, and that I wish the psychological community, the medical community, the coaching community, the counseling community had any understanding of the brilliance behind these patterns. We could solve so many problems so quickly and in such a beautiful and elegant way, because we're working with the system, not against it. And we're not trying to mask anything or medicate anything. We're just working with the genius of the human organism. And I find it quite fascinating. I would also like to invite our listeners that if you really want to learn how to do some of this work in a self-guided way, just purchase the book, Freedom Point.
It's a great book. I have it. Yes, definitely. We'll drop that link in here too.
Amazon. And so what's great about it is there's really guided exercises in here to help you really help yourself. I personally always benefit more from a guided session, but I also have profound experiences, kind of facilitating my own experiences as well. So Freedom Point, and it's just called Freedom Point: Heal Your Heart, Live Your Potential, Transform Your Life.
Thank you, Deb. I'm going to put that in the description and the show notes, and also all the links to your social channels and your website and your upcoming session that you're offering, which is so awesome. And so stay tuned for more of that, everyone. And please like, share, and subscribe. Please, 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 because we're really wanting to bring you more amazing speakers like Deb, and join the community. Check it out. The link will be in there as well, the new community we have coming up. So we'd love to have you. It's free, and it's a great community for midlife women. So I hope you'll join us. And Deb, thanks again. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Great evening, wherever you are, and take care and stay connected.